Meeple Nation Podcast, episode 489. Our top 5 games that should be in everybody's collection.
Welcome, citizens, to Meeple Nation. Grab your favorite beverage, pull up a chair, warm up those dice, and join us at the game table as we discuss board games and the board gaming world. Each week, the hosts of Meeple Nation share their love for board games and the amazing memories that come from playing games with some very outstanding people. Let us now join our hosts in their natural habitat, the game table.
Meeple Nation Podcast.
Wow, what was that?
I have no idea. I really don't know. But Meeple Nation Podcast is sponsored by the greatest addition to any game room, and that can be found at GameToppersLLC.com.
Yes, it can. Welcome to the Game Table of Meeple Nation. We are your hosts. I am Andy Holliday.
I'm Douglas Stewart.
I'm Nathan Howard.
And I'm Dave Holliday.
We would love for you to go and check out our website. We have links to all of our episodes, and we have blogs that we would love for you to read. And we have a ton of different photos for you to check out. We also have a link to our Patreon page. We are so grateful for our patrons and for the contributions they have made to us to help us improve the podcast. And if you are interested to help us improve the podcast, click the link and head over to Patreon, and we would very much appreciate any support you can give us. We would love to hear from you as well. If you have any questions, please email us at meeplenation@gmail.com or check out our Facebook group, Meeple Nation Off Air. We'd love to hear from our listeners, and any feedback you can give us or just any games that you love to play, we'd love to hear about it.
This week, we begin our discussion of train games, along with other transportation games.
See that?
Wait a minute.
As soon as it's there, I see it. I'm like, somebody didn't update that.
I thought about doing the same thing last week.
The show notes need a little update there. No, this week we are talking about our top 5 games that we think belong in everybody's collection. And I started to make my list, and I realized I was picking games that I think should be in everyone's collection based on my preferences and games that I like and that I want to play. And I had to kind of go back and rethink just a little bit and retool my list to be a little bit more representative of games that I genuinely do think belong in everybody's collection.
Nathan, do you want to start us out with your number 5?
My number 5, kind of going off what you said there, Doug, I too had to struggle with games that I thought should be on everybody's list based on my preferences, but then I had to go back and look at it and say, okay, what are some games that, yes, I enjoy, but as I've taught people these games or I've played these games with people, they've been mutually enjoyed. So my number 5 is a great game called Planet Unknown. Planet Unknown is a tile placing game. You're essentially terraforming a planet that you've discovered, and you're trying to put all your life on there. You're trying to get water on the ice areas, and just you have 5 tracks that you're trying to advance your technology up. The great thing about this is it has a new version coming out, a new deluxe version, and I'm super excited that I was not the only one that had an issue with this, but the new deluxe version comes with a lid for the Susan. They call it SUSAN, all capitals and dots after all those. But the Lazy Susan has a lid, because that game is an amazing game, and I love the Lazy Susan. But if you tip that game even 30 degrees, you end up with a big pile, and you're just shuffling your tiles.
It's auto shuffle mode.
Auto shuffle mode for sure. Still, Planet Unknown, phenomenal game. Everybody I've played it with has thoroughly enjoyed it and been very frustrated with the fact that it's not available.
That's a great pick. I love that we've played this as many times as we have, because anytime it hits the table, I think you're right. Every single person that's played it has absolutely loved playing it.
Yeah, and it goes up to a higher player count. It goes up to that 6-player count, and it doesn't bog down because it's all simultaneous actions that everybody's taking that turn. You bog down a little bit on the first person selecting their tile, and then once they've selected it, everybody else just grabs. Their options are limited to 2. So even with Dave, he's not going to take that long.
I think it's actually kind of remarkable that in the short time that this game has been I don't want to say owned because I don't know how long it was owned before we got it to the table, but since getting it to the table the first time, it has hit the table several times, and it has just been a success every time.
Yeah, this is a really, really great pick. Recently I have been trying to avoid duplicates among our libraries, right? So if you guys have a game, I don't buy it. I've been trying to save money and keep my collection a little bit lower and manageable in that regard. But with the second printing, I absolutely backed it and want this on the shelf. Even though you guys have it, this is one that I want for my collection. So it's a great pick for this top 5 list, which is games that everybody should have in their collection.
The new version there is also an expansion. I guess we can't forget that. The expansion, the Moon expansion, which is going to be great content, but it is kind of funny that the thing I'm most excited about is that lid.
It's going to be awesome. Can't wait.
I did not have enough time for this great undertaking of narrowing down this top 5. And I kind of figured it was kind of fitting anyway when looking at our different collections, since my collection is so minuscule. I figure I'll just I'll be along for the ride, a little color commentary here and there.
Okay, so that puts me at my number 5. And I kind of did the same thing similar to you guys. I tried to think of games that would fit most people, with the exception of my number 1. My number 1's more of a gamer's game. But my number 5 is King Domino, Queen Domino, or King Domino Origin. And I picked this because I love the fact that they have several versions of this out, and they play differently enough to where King Domino is kind of a basic, really easy to teach, something you can even have kids play with you. It's fun. People that aren't really heavy gamers will have fun with it. So it's something I can see really literally in everybody's house. Whereas if you want, you have someone who's a heavier gamer, you bust out Queen Domino. There's more complexity to it. There's a little more strategy involved. You have buildings on top of just the dominoes that are coming out that you get to play on the construction spots. I enjoy it a lot more. Queen Domino is my preference of those 3. And then Origins, which I've only played once, but it has more complexity to it as well versus King Domino. But any of these 3, I think, fit really well into this category because of the fact that they're super easy to teach. They're simple. The play is quick, and it really doesn't take long to finish the game. And I kind of went more with shorter games for the most part on my list as well, because most people don't have that fortitude to sit and play a 2-hour, 3-hour board game. Most people will let's just sit down and play something for 30 minutes to an hour and be done. And these definitely fit into that category.
Yeah, I love that these are so accessible. And you're great with that King Domino being the basic, Queen Domino introducing some of those higher mechanics. King Domino Origins I haven't played yet, and then there's the dual one I haven't played as well. But I own both of them, but I like just how they look on my shelf in that shiny plastic. Good call.
Yeah, I think this is a good pick. I mean, it's technically 3 games that you crammed into one choice, and so it's a little cheating. But
hey, you guys cheated last week, so I felt like I was due.
I'll allow it.
I was allowed to cheat this week.
I'll allow it. Yeah. King Domino Origins, you could technically just get that one, and it can kind of take the place of King Domino. It plays exactly the same as King Domino. It just has some additional modules that you can add in to offer some complexity. So if you're trying to decide on which one of those you would want to purchase, I would recommend Origins myself. But yeah, I think you're spot on. I think these are great picks.
What's your number 5, Doug?
My number 5, I was thinking about this. I think every collection needs a good roll and write or flip and write style game. I think every collection needs a game that's portable. I think that every collection needs a game that is easy to teach and that you can get out quick, that makes for good filler. And the game that I chose, I think, hits all of those boxes, but still manages to be exciting for the person who owns it and teaches it. It is a lighter weight game, but it's still fun. And that is Silver and Gold. It's a flip and write game, but I think it's an absolutely phenomenal game. It's really easy to teach. It's basically a matter of shuffling some cards, dealing them out, and then you just start flipping cards and writing in boxes. But it offers, I think, a really great puzzle. It offers some building blocks for people if they want to get into more heavier things. It doesn't leave anyone with a strong commitment. It can definitely be played in 15 to 20 minutes. And I think it just is overall a great pick. I would recommend everybody have a copy of Silver and Gold on their shelf.
That's a good pick. I had Nathan come over to my house. We had a youth group come over and we did a game night. And so we had just a ton of teenage boys in my basement in the game room. We had all 3 toppers set up down there, and silver and gold was on one of the tables. And it was one of those it was kind of a hit. Everybody enjoyed it. It was super easy to teach. And these boys that are way into video games, but not so much into board games, it was kind of fun to see them get a little bit into playing something that wasn't digital.
Yeah, this is a game that hits, like you're saying, pretty much universally. I've given this game away a lot as a gift, and that's always kind of a hit. I just think it's really good.
Yeah, it's one that I've given both my daughters I gave them both that for Christmas last year, because you're spot on. I mean, that game is just easy to teach, easy to play, and there's replayability in it. You can just play it over and over again. It's short. It's a great game.
Yeah. I have 3 copies of this sitting on my shelf because I combine them. Sometimes we have a lot of people who want to play, and rather than splitting them up, we'll just throw them all together and shuffle them up and just I can have up to 12 people play this. You do have to, and I know this is a curse word, Nathan, but you do have to house rule the way the coins work, because it's not balanced for combining all of the different games. But if you've got a lot of people and they all want to play together, it's one that you can throw them all together and do that as well. So I just really like silver and gold. I think it's great.
Excellent.
On to number 4, Nate.
So my number 4 is also a newer game. It's kind of funny. Most of the games, except for my number 1, are newer games. But number 4 is Earth. Earth has gotten a lot of love lately. Doug, you mentioned that you and I had the same thought process, that I really wanted to put a game on there that was kind of that fit different kind of niches per se in a collection. Earth was my go-to for a strategy game, because there is strategy in there as you're trying to get things to chain and follow the roles that your opponents pick, and be able to, when you pick a role, have something that's going to provide you with a variety of benefits as well. There's a challenge there. There's a challenge with the animals that you're trying to score that everybody can score off of. And there's the main board scores. There's your personal scores. And as you're trying to find ways to complete your 4x4 island, I think this game is going to be on a lot of people's gotta get list. And I think for upcoming gift guide, this is probably a game that's going to be on my gift guide too, if it's available. Just Earth is such a prime pick for everybody's collection, I think.
I think it's, and I don't know if it's just because I enjoy being out like in the garden and working with the earth and that kind of a thing, but there's just something about the theme and the cards and the images and the names of all the different things that is just enjoyable as well. So on top of all that you just said, Nate, I think it really kind of hits there too.
I just like building trees on my cards. It's fun.
It is.
Or loading them up with cubes.
That too.
Good pick. I like Earth quite a bit.
Okay, so I cheated again with this number 4 here.
Wow, you're really making up for last week.
I really am.
Wow.
I'm doing my best. I was going for like a kind of a smaller card game. It was what I kind of wanted to go for with my number 4. And so I narrowed it down to 2, and I couldn't decide between the 2. So I picked both, which was Ohanami and The City. And both of these are super easy to teach. And this is kind of a reoccurring theme with our picks that so far anyway. They play very quickly. And both of these ring true as far as they're fun for new players, and yet they are still enjoyable for seasoned gamers who have played these games many times. And for me, that's the telltale sign of a really good game, a solid game, is the fact that, yeah, we've played this 50 times and I still enjoy playing it. And I think both of these fit into that category.
As I was thinking about this, these were games that I probably would have put on my list, at least one of them.
So I'm surprised you didn't put Jump Drive instead of The City, because I know you say you prefer Jump Drive.
I do.
Hush, Nathan.
I do prefer Jump Drive, but the only reason I didn't put it is because I think, even though I prefer Jump Drive, I think I'm thinking of the average person would probably enjoy The City a little more than Jump Drive.
Yeah, we've had this conversation multiple times, when we're not sitting in front of the mics. And I think that The City is much more accessible than Jump Drive is on I think a lot of levels. So I agree with this as a pick. I am coming around to liking Jump Drive more than I like The City, but for this list, I like that The City is the choice.
Doug, number 4.
My number 4, I was thinking about 2-player games. I think everybody needs a good, solid 2-player only game on the shelf. And while this is not my favorite 2-player game, I think that it is the one everybody should have as part of their collection because it is incredibly fun, plays fast, and is easy to teach and easy to play. Going back to that easy to teach thing. This is Lost Cities. This is a classic. It's been around for a long time, and it's a phenomenal game. It's based on a super simple premise where you're going to deal each player, I think it's 8 cards to begin with, and all you're going to do is you're going to play a card and then take a card. And you're just trying to build out the highest scoring expeditions. There's 5 possible that correlate to 5 different colors, and it just plays incredibly fast, right? You slap a card, take a card, the other player does it, and you're just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You can play in 5 minutes. You shuffle, play again, shuffle, play again. You can play it 1 game at a time, or you can play by the official rules, which is, you can play, I shouldn't say official. You can kind of play it one of 2 different ways. You can play 1 game as just, 1 shuffle and go. Or you can play the best out of 3 where you combine the scores of 3 different rounds of it. But either way, it's just one of those where every time this hits the table, we just shuffle and go, shuffle and go, shuffle and go. And I don't know how many we play, but you just do it over and over and over again. And it's fun. It's really enjoyable and keeps your mind occupied and makes for I think a really phenomenal 2-player experience.
Yeah, Lost Cities, I really enjoy. I got Lost Cities when it first came out. It came out in 1999. Played a ton of it. Played a ton of it with Brent, one of our original hosts of the show. And it's a Ryanair Kinesia game. It's a Ryanair Kinesia game.
Gesundheit.
Thank you. Which is probably one of my favorite designers. Has a lot of games that I have enjoyed. And there's a couple of versions of it out there. There's the Lost Cities Roll and Write and the Lost City Rivals. Rivals is still in a pretty shrink wrap as well. But the Lost Cities Roll and Write, I think, is a great, great game that should also be in most people's lists as well. But Lost Cities is a great 2-player game, like you mentioned.
And that brings us to number 3. What is your number 3, Nathan?
My number 3, so going back to our list of finding those little niches that everybody needs in their collection, everybody needs a good group game. And Feed the Kraken is amazing. I very much enjoy Feed the Kraken. I very much enjoy Feed the Kraken. The way the teams balance with the sailors, the pirates, and the cultists works out very well. There's a longer board and a shorter board, which gives you options to play a longer or shorter game. The longer game actually isn't all that much longer, and the enjoyability is great. This game just provides a challenge enough, I think, that it doesn't feel like it's lopsided for one side or the other. There's more cards that are based on the pirates in the deck as far as the navigation cards go, but still there's enough of opportunity for any of the teams to win, and the fun that is had in a hidden role social game, dare I say party game that can go up to 12 people.
You watch your mouth, or I'm not playing that game again.
It is a party game. And you like it.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was fun.
Feed the Kraken, I think, should be in everybody's list, everybody's collection.
I don't like these types of games, but I liked this one.
I did too.
Yeah, and I think that's why it fits, right? Because you have games like Shadows over Camelot, Unfathomable, or Battlestar Galactica that are big games for a lot of people. I think Feed the Kraken is just kind of a more general, this is accepting of a lot of different players. And that's why it's on my list as my number 3.
Awesome.
My number 3 is Twister. So I picked this because of like all the dots, the colors.
What is happening?
And
I'm having
see my
flashbacks.
I really like the fact that I hate stretching, but if I can make it more fun, I might as well just play Twister.
You've made a really big stretch right here.
Sorry, I had to do homage to the Hug ladies with that one. So, no, my number 3 is actually Quacks, the Quacks of Quedlinburg. I picked this because...
That's a much better choice.
Agreed.
So I picked this because I thought of individuals that I don't consider gamers and some of the games that they love, and this was on some of their lists. Like my aunts really like this game. My mom really likes this game, although she's becoming more of a gamer lately. This is one that even my boy Carson will play. He cheats like crazy, but it's one that he enjoys playing. I think it's a great game because of the fact that it has a really fun pressure luck element to it. As far as bag builders go, it's one of my favorites, if not my favorite bag builder. It has 2 expansions. So the base game is pretty straightforward, pretty simple. But I like the fact that the expansions add a little bit more content and a little bit more complexity. The Alchemist expansion in particular adds a lot more strategy to it, I think. As far as being, if you're more of a gamer instead of you're playing with just gamers, I would definitely recommend using the Alchemist strategy or the Alchemist expansion for that reason. But overall, every time I've played this, everybody at the tables had fun. And whether it's my wife, who I have to drag kicking and screaming to play a game with me anymore, yet she still has a lot of fun if I can get her down there to actually play it. We've taken it up to our family reunions, and we've played it with people that aren't gamers, and they've enjoyed it. I think there's only one person I know that doesn't enjoy it, and that's Richie, because he says he has terrible luck.
He does.
I think he actually likes the game, though. He just he struggles with the press your luck.
So I'm going to admit that I'm just a little bit conflicted with this one, and only because of the expansions. Because I go back to thinking about, does this game belong in everybody's collection? The base game probably does.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if the expansions belong in everyone's collection, but you can kind of pick and choose based on how much you like the base game.
I think the Witches expansion would be fine in everybody's collection because it does not add really much complexity. In fact, it kind of makes the game easier.
That's true. Actually, that is true.
With the coins?
With the coins, yep.
Yeah. Alchemist for sure. I think that it's more of a, if you're a gamer and this is like your favorite game and you want to add a little bit more complexity to it, then for sure add the Alchemist. But it would be one that would be more for someone who would fit that niche, right? Who's not a casual gamer. But as far as casual gamers, for sure, I could see the base game and probably Herb Witches.
But I think it would actually, I think it's kind of an organic growth. I think that they would grow into the expansions.
That's true.
I agree.
That's a good point. Yep. Yeah, I can buy that. I think that's a good pick. My number 3, and I'm not cheating. I promise. I'm really not, because I'm not listing all of the Pandemic games. I'm saying that I think everybody should have a Pandemic title on their shelf. I think that the Pandemic games, I just think that they are so iconic and classic when it comes to just being great cooperative games. They're not overly complicated to teach, but they are more of a hobby game. They definitely dabble. They've kind of got a foot in both camps, in my opinion. Like easy enough, you can introduce new players to it still, but complex enough that hobby gamers can still have a really good time. I think that everybody's shelf should have a good cooperative game. At this point, Pandemic has something like 14 or 15 titles. I wouldn't jump into one of the legacy games right off the bat, but any one of the standalone titles, I think you should, you pick a flavor that you like and go with that. I don't think that you would make a wrong decision doing that. I think any Pandemic title sitting on your shelf is going to be a hit. I think that every collection needs to be rounded out with a good Pandemic title.
Pandemic was on my list. It was, I think it was my number 6 that got chopped off. I think you're absolutely right, because the Pandemic system is a great system for cooperative game. You do run the risk of running into the alpha gamer. I think with Pandemic, it's easy for somebody when teaching new players to become that alpha gamer, but still overall Pandemic is superb.
Yeah, and like you said, I'm glad you actually mentioned that, because the Pandemic system is still being used, right? I don't know of any new Pandemic titles that have come out. I think since like the Legacy Season 0. I don't know that there's any more that they've come out with, but the Pandemic system is being implemented into titles like there's the World of Warcraft Pandemic system game. There's the Star Wars, the Clone Wars Pandemic system game.
Right.
So that system is classic and tried and true enough that it is still being used and implemented into additional games. And so, yeah, I think having a Pandemic title on the shelf is a no-brainer.
I concur. My number 2?
Number 2, my lord.
So my number 2 is Clank, or as it's pronounced, Clank. Got to use that exclamation point there. And there's a wide variety of Clank games. There's Clank, and then there's Clank in Space, and Clank Catacombs. Any one of these I think is great. Clank Catacombs
It's the best.
It's the best of the series. Not my favorite. I actually really like the flavor and the fandom that is taken care of in the Clank in Space because of all the cards. There's a ton of fan service that is in the Clank in Space game. And I think it's a great opportunity for them to just use all the sci-fi TV shows, movies that are out there and just bring it all together. It's a little bit harder to do in the fantasy realm, but Clank in Space is great. Although the Clank Catacombs, the dungeon delving, the asymmetric discovery that was first kind of kicked off in Clank in Space, but really evolved and became much better in Clank Catacombs, just makes the game replayability wise through the roof. And Clank Catacombs is by far the way to go in the Clank series. But a Clank game that has deck building, the strategy of diving into the deeps and getting back before everybody else, and making it so that maybe you're coaxing that dragon to come sooner and have them eliminated and be the sole victor, or at least be the victor with the most points. So
I'm not entirely sure. Like, Clank is a great game. In fact, I really enjoy all the Clanks. Clank, the original, with the extra content that it has, with the asymmetric player boards that you can have, I think it is phenomenal. And Clank Legacy is, I haven't played through it all of the way, but what we've played so far, I absolutely love Clank Legacy. And I think as far as legacy style games go, Clank Legacy is one of the best. I would say maybe even Clank Legacy should be that Clank game, because then you also get to introduce people to one of the greatest things that has ever come to board games.
Yeah.
I did really enjoy Clank Legacy. That is one I have finished with one of my other game groups, and it was by far the best Legacy game experience that I've ever had. I just don't know if that one quite belongs in everybody's collection. I think if you like Clank and you have a group that would like to play a Legacy style game, then I think for sure it's the first one I would recommend, but I don't know if it belongs on everybody's shelf. You've got to think, though, Nathan, that they are working on a Clank Catacombs equivalent set in Clank in Space, right?
yeah, I would hope so, because that would be phenomenal.
That would become like the new gold standard for Clank almost, maybe other than the Legacy, but
Yeah.
that would be awesome. I think having a Clank title on the shelf is a good pick.
Yeah, I agree. This was also my number 2. We introduced this to some friends of ours. My wife and I, we went over and we had recommended, hey, let's play a game. So we went over to their house and we set up Clank Catacombs, which is my preference. That's my favorite one. It's a dungeon crawl, so no surprise there. It was as I was explaining the rules, they kind of acted like it was like, oh my gosh, there's so much. But they caught on so fast. And honestly, of our friends, it was actually the wife. She won the game. It was fun to see her get so excited about winning this, thinking that she didn't have a chance at the beginning because she thought it was just this really complex game, but they picked it up so quickly. This is a solid number 2 for me. I think that Clank Catacombs in particular is the game to have.
Solid number
This
2.
is a solid number 2.
Solid number 2.
Yes.
Now that really is a great pick. When I was thinking about my number 2, I was thinking about a game on the shelf that introduces building blocks to players, right? A game that can be brought out to introduce foundational principles to other people, if you're introducing it to new players in particular. Things like hand management, resource management, engine building, those types of things. And a game that I think does that just phenomenally well, on top of just being an outstanding game that is fun to play every time it hits the table, I chose for my number 2, Century. You could go with Century Spice Road, but I really think you should go with Century Golem Edition. The Golem Edition is just better. The art's better. The components are better. And it just is a little bit more fun from an aesthetic standpoint, even though the two games play exactly the same. Century Golem, phenomenal game. And every single time that we pull this out, we have an incredibly fun time playing it. I've never had a miss of this. I've played it, I don't know, I'd have to pull up my stats. I don't know how many times I've played it, dozens at this point, but I've never had a miss with Century Golem.
Yeah, Century Golem. And I agree with you, Doug, on between Spice Road and Golem. Century Golem is definitely the pick as far as between those two. And there are 3 different Century Golem games. And honestly, all 3 of them are really fun.
They are. Yeah, they're all really good.
I had them on my shelf for, oh my gosh, years, and they've just sat there. We've never played. We only played the first one. And over the winter, it was over Christmas break, my wife and I decided we're going to learn these other games, and we played them quite a bit. Really, and they played completely different from Century Golem, from the regular game, and you can add them all together. And anyway, I think this is a great pick. And like I said, that almost made my list. It probably, if I could have had 6, it would have probably been number 6.
Yeah, it's an awesome choice. And I think as a standalone game, it stands on its own, right? It doesn't need any help at all. But if you love it and you want a deep dive, you can absolutely get those other games and then start combining them and mix and matching them. And there's a whole rabbit hole you can kind of go down if you really like it. But yeah, Century Golem's great.
I think, Nathan, we're at number 1.
Yeah, number 1. So every collection needs to have a copy of Monopoly. Every collection. No one's going to play it, but everybody needs one.
I have one.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I'm not sure there is a collection that doesn't have that.
Not only do I have a copy of Monopoly, it got played last week.
Oh, really?
I want to know when this episode got turned into a Hug a Meeple spoof tribute episode.
It's kind of funny when we were moving, when we were looking for houses, and we'd go through houses, and it's kind of a nosy thing, right? You're going through these houses where somebody still lives, but they've vacated, so you can rifle through their stuff, sort of. To you're looking at the house, but it feels like you're rifling through their stuff. And I was interested when I'd open up a closet and there'd be games, and I'm like, oh, look, there's Monopoly. But then you'd always have to rate the caliber of the gamer that you're in.
And is that how you determined which house to buy?
Well, no, this house was empty, so
Okay.
This house just had potential for overgaming. But no, every collection, my number 1, every collection should have a copy of Catan. I think Catan has become the big gateway game for a lot of people. I mean, I think as old as the game is, not as relevant to some new gamers, but at some point, even those younger gamers are going to come across and be introduced to the game of Catan.
Yeah, no doubt.
And what it offers. It's still a great game, not one that reaches the table very often, but if it does, it should have the Cities and Knights expansion.
Amen to that.
And Catan is, there's history with Catan. There's history to what Catan brought to the gaming community. And that history is also there with Monopoly. I mean, honestly, Monopoly is something that...
Stay in one lane, Nathan.
Staying in my lane, sorry. But Monopoly is something that, introduced a lot of people to gaming, and it's a game that's been played. But Catan was a game that kind of turned that Monopoly on its ear.
Made it irrelevant.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah, and brought games from being something like Monopoly to something that was enjoyable. And
well, it's amazing that we are still feeling the influence of a game like Catan and a developer like Klaus Teuber, right? Who recently passed away, but his contributions to the hobby are just phenomenal. And we could fill a whole episode and not say enough about what he and the Catan sort of franchise have done for hobby gaming.
Absolutely.
yeah,
If you can't add this to your shelf, you should at least play it, right? You should at least seek out and play it.
Absolutely.
Everyone should play Catan, even if you don't add it, to your collection. If you haven't played it, go play it. It's great.
With the Cities and Knights expansion.
With the Cities and Knights expansion.
Yes. But anyways, that's my number 1.
So my number 1, I decided to focus everything on my list was more focused towards general people, not necessarily gamers. And I wanted to have a pick that was focused on what every gamer should have in their game room, not just any general person that has a few games. So my number 1 pick was the Castles of Burgundy. Any gamer should have this game. It's a fun game. We've talked about it a few weeks ago. So I recently got my Kickstarter with the 3D components for this. It has renewed my love for this game. I loved it before.
Mine too.
Oh my gosh.
I think I've played it with you both times you played it, and it's awesome.
It's so good.
Yeah, it looks really nice. The 3D adds a lot to it. I had played it once before, and kind of just went in one die roll and out the other, and didn't really stick much in my memory. But playing it, I mean, the 3D feel, I mean, I don't think every game needs stuff like that, but when it has it, it does add something for sure.
Yeah, and there was a lot of extra content that came with that Kickstarter. And so you have an estate that has all the different colors that will match the tiles that you're going to be placing on them. Just the sheer number of different estates and different configurations that are in the game. I mean, it opens up all the different possibilities for scoring and for strategy and everything else in the game. Plus, there are a ton of different mini modules that you can add and larger expansions that you can add to change things up and keep it fresh for the more serious gamer. The nice thing about it is it's not overly complicated, that that it excludes those that maybe are lighter on lighter gamers. I think it's simple enough. You're just rolling dice and using those dice to take actions. You only have 2 dice, and you do that every single turn. So as far as gameplay, it looks maybe a little intimidating, especially with all the 3D components for that new version that I got. But really, it's not. It looks far more complicated than it is. It's right up there with a second one that I would say would be maybe Puerto Rico, that a gamer should have in their game room, because once again, that's just a solid, great gamer's game.
I think that's an absolutely great pick. I love Castles of Burgundy, and I loved it before the super special premiere edition came out. This has been one that we've really enjoyed playing on BGA. It's hit the table before. I think it's a phenomenal game. Love Castles of Burgundy.
Is the super special, what did you call it? Super special premium edition? Is that the official title for it? So
I
if you're
think that's
looking
exactly.
for it,
Yeah, you should just Google
super
that and
special
buy it.
premium edition. And, yeah. Okay, so that brings us to my number one. And when I was thinking about it, I just thought, you know what? Every collection needs a horrible game that will make little kids cry when they play it. So I picked Sorry.
Good job, Doug. You joined in the
that's
fun.
our top 5.
Until next time.
Oh wait, we're not doing that anymore? Yeah.
Well, you're the last one to do the number one, so probably not.
Okay. My number one, I knew that Nathan was putting Catan on his list. Andy, I knew that you were putting Castles of Burgundy on yours. I think both of those are great picks. I considered both of them, and I went in a slightly different direction. I genuinely believe that every collection needs a good RPG. And so for my number one, I have actually picked the Dungeons and Dragons core books, and in particular, 5th edition, because it is the most accessible of all the systems that are out there, in my opinion.
I think you're right.
The number of hours of just pure fun and enjoyment you can have with those books and a few pieces of paper and some sets of dice is astounding. It really is. And the amount of fun that you can have with getting a game out with your kids, which is something I do all the time, or if you want to take it super serious and have an official group and run a whole campaign or whatever you want to do. But, if you've got those core books and everyone understands the rules, you can throw together either a homebrew or pick up a campaign or something like that and just have so much fun.
and just the imaginative play that it
Correct.
allows,
Group problem solving,
Right.
all of that. Yep.
Yeah.
So much fun. Yep. Creating a story together as a group is honestly one of the most rewarding experiences you can have, I think, at the game table.
No, I think this is good. I didn't even think to have an RPG, but I think that's a great idea. It's one of those things that my youngest son in particular keeps putting a bug in my ear about wanting to. We had started making characters like, when are we going to play? When are we going to play? And I think you're right. I think 5e is more accessible. I enjoy 3.5 more, but that's the one I'm more familiar with, which may be why it just seems like there was a lot more content, a lot more customizability in it. But when we
Plus,
started,
I own them all.
yes, that's true. I own a ton of books, but I own a ton of books for 5e too. We started making characters in 5e, and I'm like, I'm not sure I remember all the rules for 5e. We probably got to switch back over to 3.5. But yeah, great idea. And I think you're right. Some of my favorite game night moments have been in our plays of Pathfinder or Dungeons and Dragons or whatever RPG we have at the table. It makes for some really fun memories, and memories that stick with you more so than like many other games do. And I think it's because of that creative aspect that you're actually creating it and helping build that story and fleshing everything out. And that just makes for a great experience.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that. That it is, it's not something that I would have ever considered putting on my list. But as you talk about it and you describe it, because I know role playing isn't necessarily for everybody, but I think given the opportunity and given the chance that as you discover and as you use that imagination to grow that as a group, I think you're spot on, Andy. That gives a great opportunity to provide that shared story, that shared conclusion, that shared narrative that will provide greater memories than some of these other games like Sorry or Monopoly or
Maybe not Twister. Twister's fairly memorable.
Is it?
Is it?
But still, I mean, you're going to have some fond memories with role playing for sure.
Absolutely. My number 1, Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition core books.
And that does it for our top 5 games that should be in every game collection.
Until next time.
We'll see you at the game table when we all have the same collection. Except for we shouldn't. We need a lot of variety in those collections. But these games should be on all your shelves. Don't make me come check under the mattress for that mattress. Rambling, I got nothing there.
Okay, but wait a minute. Why are there shelves under their mattress?
No, it was the mattress tag, that you're supposed to not remove by law, penalty of law.
Right.
But I'm not going to check that mattress tag. I'm going to check your game shelf and make sure these games are on there.
I'm telling you, sometimes it is just so fascinating to sit and watch Nathan's brain work in real time. That rabbit hole you just went down, it was amazing.
Like, how did you go
How
from
did your brain do that?
wow.
Anyway, we'll see you next time.
At the game table.
Thank you for listening and being a part of Meeple Nation. If you would be so kind as to follow, subscribe, share, and rate or review this podcast, it really helps to spread the fun. You can be more involved in supporting the podcast by joining the nation at patreon.com/MeepleNation, or you can find a link at the top of our webpage, meeplenation.com. And while you're there, look at all our extra content. There are links to all our past episodes, a wide variety of blogs, pictures from our Instagram feed, and bios for all the hosts and our awesome bloggers. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, all under Meeple Nation. If you would like to chat with the hosts or other members of the nation, you can join our Facebook group, Meeple Nation Off Air. We hope to see you again at a game night, a con, or maybe a suspense-driven evening of werewolf. Thank you for listening and supporting Meeple Nation, and stay tuned for next week's episode.
Thank you so much for listening. We very much want to thank our patrons who help keep the podcast running. I personally want to thank my co-hosts for all the help they provide with both content here on the podcast, in addition to what we have available on our website. Without them, the podcast would not happen. If you too would like to support the podcast, you can join the nation at patreon.com/Meeple_nation. Or you can find a link to Patreon at the top of our webpage, meeplenation.com. If you have any questions, comments, or games you feel should be on our radar, you can always reach us at meeplenation@gmail.com. We can't wait to hear from you. I am grateful to Doug and Andy who helped me edit episodes, and I want to thank James and Kim Clark who do the editing on our blogs and on our webpage, which can be found at meeplenation.com. We want to thank Brain Detergent for our music. If you want to find more from him, you can follow his links that can be found on our webpage, or simply search for Brain Detergent on YouTube to find more of his tracks. Thank you again for listening and being part of the Meeple Nation community.